Thank you, Klaus, for having me. So I will talk about a very specific issue that you can find in AI medicine, which is basically this idea that a lot of these technologies are basically black boxes, meaning we don't have epistemic access to the way that those systems work. But before going into those details, let me start by telling you a very positive story about the application of AI in medicine. So IBM's Watson is a famous supercomputer, and there was this lady in Japan who had a very specific rare disease, but doctors couldn't find the right treatment. They couldn't get the right diagnosis, and they were like sort of desperate. So basically they decided to contact IBM, and this took like 3 years of misdiagnosing, and only basically the IBM Watson then used 10 millions of data from different cancer patients from the entire world. And in only 10 minutes, the computer basically identified the exact rare disease that that specific patient had. And because of that, she could be saved because she had a rare case of leukemia. We know that leukemias, the time is very relevant to have a full efficient treatment. So basically we can say that the use of this supercomputer saved the life of this old lady. And this is a positive story about the application of AI in medicine. But then there is also negative stories about the application of AI in medicine. Specifically, something that we know that is common, but before looking to that, we can also train models to identify, for example, specific skin cancers. So in this case, there was this model from Google that was based on millions of non-medical data, for example, images of cubs, dogs, and cats. And then an AI medicine team wanted to use this model to train it for AI medicine applications, and basically they started to feed that model with different kinds of skin lesions images that were already confirmed by biopsy. And then what they did was basically to compare the performance of this model with human doctors. And basically what happened was that the model was more efficient in general than doctors. And of course, here we should, of course, the efficiency is relevant, but what is also relevant is the time processing of all those data, right? Because human doctors, they take a lot of time and energy to reach those results, but these AI models, they can do it in just a couple of minutes. And again, in medicine, time is very important for the efficiency of the treatments and the diagnosis and etc. But the interesting point is that these models usually they sort of create these biases regarding the color of the skin of the patients. Why? Because a lot of the data that they use comes from people who have access to healthcare in general, and those are generally correlated with white-skinned patients. And because of that, basically the diagnosis or the model created these darker skinned biases that is underperforming when patients have different colors from white. So these are basically just two contextual stories. One is more positive, the other is more negative. AI can save the life of many people, but it can also create these biases, and we have to think about how to deal with this. Now I would like to introduce what is the problem of AI in medicine. So as I try to show you in these two stories, the application of AI in medicine is evolving nowadays. The basic application or the basic assumption is the idea that all these AI models create a more accurate, economical, and faster medicine. And of course, when I say more, I'm always comparing with what we can call traditional medicine, right? Or that is medicine done by humans in specific. So there are many applications of AI that we can use. Diagnostic imaging, for example. We can also help doctors to estimate different kinds of cancer. We can also elaborate treatment plans. We can also use robotic mediated surgeries. Of course, this is all AI, but one of the problems of this approach, at least, is that this is AI, but there are many different kinds of artificial intelligence models with different techniques. So I will make a general case here, but of course we need to look also into the different kinds of AI we are using, because using a deep learning model is very different from using a machine learning, for example. Even though they have the same nature, at least for me, they will require different ethical analysis. But the important point of this general approach to AI is that because we are dealing with so many millions of data, we can say, and a lot of people claim, that all these models are basically black boxes. So what is a black box? Basically, from a human point of view, we understand the information we put inside that system. And we also understand from a human point of view the kind of information that the system gives you. So we understand the output of that system. It's comprehensible from a human point of view. The problem is that we don't understand how the system crosses the inputs and the outputs. And why? And there are many different technical reasons to argue that AI models are black boxes. So first of all, it's about the model architecture of these models, because they consist in several layers that are interconnected and that make literally millions of interactions that we cannot trace from a human point of view. A lot of these models, they use nonlinear activation functions, which basically means that there is a issue of interpretability. We cannot interpret the data that the model is using. Of course, some models, they also use different kinds of data, right? So they can use text, but some use images. They can also use audios. So, and this makes the specific identification inside the model of which data or which is the nature of that data impossible, basically. And I think the most specific characteristics that make these models a black box is the fact that they are dealing with millions of data in a short period of time. So, and because of this, it's practically impossible to understand fully an AI system. And why is this problematic? Well, because there is an assumption in medicine that the doctor is in full control of the medical practice, basically. But what happens here, and what I call it's a philosophical vacuum with an impact in the practice of medicine, is that doctors lose part or total control of the medical practice. And because of that, patients cannot fully trust the doctors in one side, but also in the medical practice in the other. And of course, there is also a trust issue regarding the trust that doctors can have in the medical practice itself, right? Because now this is the interesting paradox, right? So it's the idea that doctors have a moral obligation to trust a system because it's more efficient and accurate than they are, to trust a system that they do not understand. And this is the paradox that I think we need to deal with. And of course, more important than a medical decision when we go to a doctor, right? We should also we should have this idea that the doctor knows what he's doing, right? He knows exactly every step of the medical process, but at least some people argue that with the introduction of AI models in medicine, the doctor loses part of this control. Some people call this kind of medicine a blind medicine. And I like this term. So this lead us to three specific problems in the application of AI in medicine. The first is that the lack of this epistemic transparency, they prevent doctors to explain to their patients what is happening to them, right? So why they are having specific symptoms, why they are telling them to have this specific treatment, etc. And of course, this lack of epistemic transparency also prevents doctors to understand the nature of the disease they are dealing with. And of course, and this is an ethical point, the lack of epistemic transparency also collides with principles of autonomy for patients and also the right to be informed, right? So there is this assumption in medicine that patients should have a right to be informed about their own medical condition, but at least in some cases, the application of AI models in medicine makes or raises this problem of self-autonomy of patients as well. So how we can solve this? So this is basically the main problem, and maybe I should make a pause, see if you understand exactly what is the problem. So do you understand that there is a problem or not? Do you agree or disagree? Someone disagree?
I disagree with one aspect, which would be the assumption that the doctor has full control. That is clearly not true.
In a traditional medicine?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if I go to the doctor and I've got a high level of cholesterol that like I had recently, he's going to, or she's going to tell me, no, you need to get statins.
Right.
But then, of course, they don't know exactly the literature, also because it's a mess, it's a problem. So
interesting.
That assumption is, in my opinion, as you put it, incorrect. The other part of the problem, yes, I understand.
So,
my opinion.
No, that's a good. I have a good answer for that. So, I make this distinction. So, my argument is that the application of AI in medicine creates a trust gap. But what you are saying basically is that there is already a trust gap in current medicine, right? In human medicine. But I think we can make a distinction, which is between an easy trust gap and a hard trust gap. So I think human medicine have different easy trust gaps. What does that mean? Your doctor doesn't know exactly, but he can find out if there is the epistemic potential, at least. He can look for a paper on that specific treatment, for example. He can talk with a colleague, and that colleague can inform with more, epistemic information about that specific disease. So he can look for an answer, basically. There is this potential, at least. Even if your doctor doesn't know, he can look for an answer. And I think with AI medicine, that doesn't happen, basically. And that's why I think we can make this distinction. And in the rest of the talk, whenever I'm talking about a trust gap, I'm always focusing on the hard trust gap and not the easy trust gap. Yeah, but of course, that's a good point. Is there any other comment? No? Okay, so this is the problem, and of course, it's a hard problem, but philosophers are weird people. We like to solve hard problems, so here we go. So first solution is, of course, to argue that we can basically just restrict or constrain any development of AI models that have a black box structure. So the idea here is to say that we can just ban these models because they don't bring, or they put the medical practice in check. So they create too many problems that we cannot solve, and because of that, we should just go for a human medicine, even if it's less efficient, less accurate. At least we have full control of that specific medical structure. So the point here is that again, like traditional medicine argues that we need, or that patients have the right to be informed and to do informed decisions about their own health. And because of this black box problem, that doesn't happen. And of course, And another point which is interesting is that when we are dealing with black box models, imagine that a mistake happens, right? So in that case, it's really hard to understand where the model got it wrong. So we cannot correct a model, basically. And because we cannot correct the model, there are issues of responsibility that raises, right? Because the doctors will not claim to be morally responsible for a decision made by a machine, but we cannot identify the specific input that was wrong and that make the diagnosis wrong as well. So there is also this second problem that rises when we are dealing with this epistemic opacity of these AI models. But I think, of course, this is a very easy solution, right? So it's very pragmatic, it's very simple. We applied these solutions to other technological issues, such as human genetics, nuclear bomb, maybe, etc. And it works, right? So at least officially, nobody is cloning humans. Maybe China, I don't know. But at least official, that's the narrative. Nobody is doing it. So of course, this is a practical solution. It works, but I think it ignores all the potential, the ethical potential of this technology, basically. There are many, many ethical reasons that we should take into consideration the application of AI in medicine. Well, why? Because we can literally save thousands of lives that we are not saving right now. And of course, there is another side effect, which is we can also save a lot of money from public health, because if we use more AI in medicine, AI models, they can work 24 hours per day, they don't get tired, they don't commit errors like humans do, and we can apply this money to other realities. So because of these two main positive moral arguments, I think this solution is not the best. And of course, there is also another issue, which is about the pragmatic of the development of the technology. I don't think we can literally stop industry to produce this kind of models. Why? Because they have so many positive applications, basically. So I don't think this is a good solution. Another solution is to argue that we should accept the benefits of AI and just ignore the consequences, basically. So we can claim that more relevant than a trust-based relationship between doctors and patients, what matters is that lives can be saved. And if this technology can help society to spend less money in health in general, and it can save more lives again, even if this comes at the corruption of the trust principle in current medicine, then that should be the case. And of course, there is another assumption in this answer or in this solution, is that actually trust is not the medicine's priority right now, right? So, because if that was the case, we should argue that current medicine should maximize the levels of trust between patients, but actually that's not what happens, because maximizing trust can even lead to a worse result for the patient, right? Imagine a patient fully trust blindly the recommendation of a doctor without any critical judgment about that. And now imagine that specific patient has an evil doctor for some reason, and basically he will just oblige to any information that the doctor will give him. So we can claim here that trust is not the priority of medicine. What is the priority of medicine is actually to save lives, basically. And of course, we can say that this solution is a sort of application of what we can call an epistemic paternalism on the patient, but also on the doctor, right? Why? Because, again, the trust gap happens in two levels. So the first level is the trust that the patient can have in doctors, but also the trust that doctors can have in the medical process itself. Although this is an interesting solution, I think there are three specific problems with it. First is that there is evidence that patient-centered medicine can have better health outcomes in general. And then, of course, I think there are no ethical reasons, right, to argue that doctors should actually respect the autonomy of patients. And again, this implies the right to be informed, and because of that, the right to know what is their medical conditions and what is the implication of the treatments that they will do, etc. And of course, it's based also on the idea of data, right? So these AI models or this black box medicine uses big data as concrete and clear facts about the world that basically are indisputable, and they have the same value independently of the context they are being used. But actually, we know that big data are highly contextual, and their value depends of the value of the data that are surrounding that specific data. So because of that, I think this solution is not that interesting. It's more interesting than the first one in my view, but it's not that interesting. But before I go to the first solution, maybe we can make a pause. What do you think about these two solutions? So the first one will be banning, and the second one will be accepting without measuring the consequences of that. So do you think they are reasonable answers? No, they are bad. But I think the second one is stronger than the first one, at least, right? No?
I'm personally for banning completely. Sorry, what you
Yeah.
Yes, I'm extremely Luddite, so I think I will get rid of AI. That's why I'm here.
In the world.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it doesn't make any sense, as you said. The argument of the medical potential is a good one. The saving money argument is an extremely dangerous one, politically speaking. So I will be careful about that.
Yeah.
Pushing that.
Yeah.
Because this is what all the national health services want to do. They want to get rid of people and use machines. You know?
Right.
And
But
that's my biggest concern.
But
Okay.
yeah, but for me, that's not a problem if we create a more efficient medicine, if people have a better medicine in general.
And if everybody's unemployed, is that good? I mean,
That's a
that
political issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can discuss it as well, but
You know, that is the trend, I would say. As I was saying to him, I mean, if Elon Musk was a dictator, it would be like that. And so, if we believe what he said, but in any case, you know.
There are some ideas of AI as competence enhancing versus competence destroying. And I think depending on its application, if it's competence enhancing, and I'm thinking about a seminar that I went to last month at Gouveia Foundation, and they're using AI, machine learning models towards treatment of breast cancer.
right.
And what they're doing is like fMRI, patients are belly down, they're facing down. So the breast tissue goes down with gravity because it's soft tissue. And they train the model so that you could turn that image into an image that's flipped around when they're getting the operation. What does it do? They're also creating a new operating room with cameras and also with augmented reality. And this way they're avoiding a secondary incision to localize the tumor, so they can reduce the amount of pain and discomfort for the patient and also give more skills to the doctor. The doctor is still there, he's still doing the operation, still treating everything. But AI in this way and augmented reality is used to give more competencies to the physician. So I think it depends. There's this model, there's other kind of models. So it's a case by case scenario, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's an important point. I think all the ethical analysis I'm doing should be, so I'm trying to do a general one, but I think specific models will require different ethical analysis. So we cannot make a general analysis that is applied to all AI models. But the second point, or my second comment, will be there are like three ways we can relate humans and AI, right? So the first one is to consider a relationship that is on the loop, right? So on the loop is basically the human is always in control of the AI. The AI is just an instrument, and etc. Then we can have an in-the-loop relationship, which basically the human just supervise the AI. The AI makes the decision, but there is a human that supervises that decision. And then we have the out-of-the-loop kind of relationship, where basically the AI is fully autonomous of any human supervision. And of course, I think the in or on-the-loop case are more reasonable ethically, and I don't think they are that's relevant in the point they don't create an hard trust gap, because human is always there. Human can always justify. I think the really hard case to be solved, to be answered, is the out of the loop kind of relationship between humans and AI. So ideally, I'm talking about as scenarios from the future and not the present, right? Where we have AI models that are fully autonomous and they can make the decisions by themselves. I think that's the hard case to be justified, because if you can ethically justify this case, all the others are also justified by consequence. So, any other comment, or should I go to the best solution there? Yeah. Okay. So the third and last solution that I think we can provide to answer the hard trust gap is basically to argue in favor of explainable AI, or what we can call transparent AI. So the idea is that we want to explain what is happening inside the system, because that will enhance actually the trust relationship between patients and doctors. And the intuition behind this idea is that communication and exchange of medical information should be central to the medical-patient relationship. And of course, remember that with AI medicine, the medical expert cannot fully explain at least why a specific prediction by an AI model was made. And we know, and this is based on data from psychology, we know that the expert's ability to explain to a patient its medical condition affects directly the level of trust that the patients have in that doctor. But of course, if there is no explanation available, as it seems to be the case with a lot of AI models currently, especially based on deep learning and machine learning, patients will not understand a medical or a medical decision or a treatment, and because of that, they will tend to fear or distrust the technology in question. And of course, and this is another very important point, explanations are not just relevant for this trust gap purpose, right? But there are actually medical advantages. There are empirical advantages in understanding how a specific model reached to a specific decision. Why? Because usually these decisions are usually based on mechanistic or causal frameworks, and to understand how a specific model reached a specific diagnosis also enhance our knowledge about the nature of that specific disease. And you can think about rare disease, for example, that we don't have a lot of knowledge about right now. These AI models can provide also a tool to understand their nature. But of course, in order to achieve that, we need to understand how or what kind of explanations the model is trying to create. But of course, there are many challenges. I'm not sure how many time do I have.
5 minutes.
Oh, shit. Okay, so I will make it a bit faster now. So there is this lack of interpretability in these AI models. Of course, we know that medical knowledge is always evolving, and the usual structure of this AI model is to basically make decisions based on the past, right? So we use the base data or the database from patients and information that belongs to the past of the world, right? So we cannot create new knowledge based on this data. And of course, there is a lot of uncertainty. Humans are more or less good at dealing with uncertainty. I'm not sure if AI models can do the same. Let me skip here a few things. Because I want to get to, yeah. So let me just provide you a very fake like example of what explainable AI can do or can be in AI medicine. So imagine we have this AI model that we want to predict the risk of developing a specific disease based on various information from the patients, like the age, the gender, the blood pressure, cholesterol levels, family history. So the goal is to provide an explanation for the model's prediction. And we train this model with the patient records. We can use different kinds of AI techniques, and basically then the model can tell us the following conclusion: based on your age, your family history, your blood pressure, your cholesterol levels, the model predicts a higher risk of developing the disease. And this is, of course, a very general diagnosis, but this can help then the patient to take preventive measures, for example. And this will be the kind of approach that explainable AI can do. But there is a problem here, because even if we are dealing with explainable AI, there are many limiting factors about these techniques, because basically they work because they are easily, or the features that work in explainable AI are those that are easily recognized by humans, by the point of view of humans. And because of that, it's very limiting, right? And I don't think explainable AI is enough. So we need to achieve an explanatory AI instead, one that is capable of providing explanations. And of course, if we need explainability, then we need to provide a definition of explainability. But in the literature, in the current literature, there is a big fight about what it means to have a system that is explainable. The rest of the talk, which will be 3 minutes, is based on a work that I'm doing with my PhD student in Porto. So some people are arguing for what they call a pragmatic turn in explainable AI. And what is this pragmatic turn is basically, if we want to provide techniques of explainable AI, we first need to understand how doctors provide explanations. So we need to understand how humans in general in the medical field, how they usually provide explanations. We also know that usually explanations have these constructive why questions, right? So they are not just descriptive, but they also answer the following structure: why P instead of Q, right? So usually explanations in medical field have this constructive why question structure. And then we can also claim that explanations have two specific dimensions, at least in human medicine. One is social, so it's part of a social practice. And also what we will argue for in this specific paper is that human doctors, what they do is abductions. What they are doing in their practices is abductive reasoning. They are not doing inductions, they are not doing deductions, they are doing abductions. And then what we will claim is basically that human medicine is then abductive. And if that's the case, we need to find, or we need to create an AI model that is capable of doing abductive reasoning. And then what we will end up arguing is that at least some specific models, like transformers and some large language models, they at least show potential capacity to engage in abductive reasoning, at least in some cases. And this, I think, can be the key to solve the problem of explainable AI, or at least to make it relevant. So the point is, we will argue that doctors do abductive reasoning. We need to find an AI tool that also engages in abductive reasoning, and therefore we can solve the problem, basically. So to conclude, I think it's clear that the development of AI models in medicine raised some reservation that we as a society should have. But I think if we analyze all these negative and positive aspects of these three solutions, I think we will be in a more relevant epistemic and ethical position. And of course, the most relevant part of the talk is what I call, we need to fight this methodological bias between ethics and technology. So instead of creating the technology first and only then consider its ethical consequences, we should first think ethically about it, and only then, when we reach like an ethical standard, we should then use and deploy all these technologies. So you can check my AI projects, my 2 books on AI commentary. There will be a conference on the ethics of AI in general in the end of the month. If you are in Porto, you can just visit us. and the references for the talk and the end. Thank you.